Badger Hoops. Ira Bowman, JC Rockhill with you once again. And this past week was a historic week for the Snow College men's basketball program with the 2 wins they got. And the women are on the verge with their 2 wins last week of having a historic comeback, which we'll get into later. And that has to do with the women's Scenic West Athletic Conference standings. But going to the men, they are 27-1 overall after beating Colorado Northwestern and Salt Lake last Thursday and Saturday, both on the road. The last 2 road games that the men's Badger team will play this year. They're 13-0 in conference, 8-0 at home, and 12-0 on the road. Finishing a perfect 12-0 on the road really says something about the grit and toughness of Coach May's team. And those 2 records that the Badgers set, JC, they're really impressive, aren't they?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, a 20-game winning streak alone, it stands out, but you also have to set aside the fact that they've won 27 overall games on the season, which is a school record in itself. And the way that they've done this is being so effective shooting the ball. They are top 6 in the 3 major shooting categories, 51.6 from the field, which is 5th, 39.1 from the 3, which is 6th, and then you have 77.5 from the free throw line, which is 1st, because we saw them last year, the Badgers, they really struggled from the free throw line. So that improvement alone has really stuck out. But the fact that they've been able to win so many games and have this 20-game winning streak going against conference teams, which we saw them also struggle with last year, it's just been so fun to watch. I mean, this is a team that just has such a desire to win and keep winning.
Yeah, after a little bit of a fall apart in this later half of conference play last year, just seeing a perfect 13-0 conference record so far with 2 more games left on the schedule is very impressive from Coach May's team. They're still at the top of the standings, obviously being 13-0, 27-1 overall. Next in the standings is CSI at 8-5 at 20-8 overall, North Idaho at 7-6, and Salt Lake at 6-8. And it doesn't matter, kind of crazy, that what happens this week, it does not matter who wins and who loses with the rest of the games in the entire conference. It is set in stone that Salt Lake will play, will play Salt Lake in the first round of the SWAC tournament, and that CSI North Idaho will play here in Ephraim in the SWAC tournament in the second, in the 2 versus 3 game, en route to looking for a Scenic West Athletic Conference championship. So even though there are games left, the tournament's set in stone.
Yep, no doubt. And I think that the biggest thing going into this tournament is the Badgers really not idolizing the idea that they have the home court advantage in this tournament. So definitely just stay focused. Obviously this week you want to come out with the 2 more victories and really have momentum going into that tournament. But overall, I think the men's team is really just focused in on winning overall. And Salt Lake Community College, they've had their struggles against them, but I really think they're going in with a lot of confidence going into that tournament. And I think they're really going to use it this week. Basically, I don't want to say too much as a practice round in advance of this tournament, but they're definitely looking to win out this tournament and really win that SWAC championship.
Yeah, you mentioned Salt Lake. We'll get to Snow's game against them after we talk about Colorado Northwestern. Snow went into Rangeley, Colorado, and beat the Spartans 94-71. That's the largest margin of victory the Badgers have had over Colorado Northwestern this season. But that first half was a very close game. The Badgers were down by as much as 8 in the first half, and then a few threes from Chance Trujillo and a buzzer-beating dunk from Aaron Bliss off the assist, I believe, from Isaac Garrett, got the Badgers a 43-40 lead at halftime. And after that, Coach May's team put it on the Spartans in the second half and then basically cruised the rest of the way.
Yeah, and in that second half, it was really just an onslaught both offensively and defensively. Yeah, he limited CNCC to 31 total points and outscored them 51-31, to be more specific. So a lot of consistency both ways, and that's really been the story of this season. And I also have to mention the fact that they had 4 players in double figures. You had Garrett with 23 points, 9 rebounds, Chance with 20 points and 4 rebounds, Finlayson dropped 13 and 9 rebounds, and Ford coming off the bench had 10 points and 3 assists. So all around, it's just a classic story of them this season, being consistent both offensively and defensively, and the bench players really playing as good as they can.
Yep, and I mean the defense in that second half is really a big part of why the Badgers are undefeated on the road this year.
Yep, no doubt. I think it's really just been a really great balance between that man and zone defense and the players really just executing it perfectly, communicating between each other a lot of the time. It's really worked in their favor, so the defense has just been tremendous. I think we're really going to see that presence this week.
Yep. And then moving on to the Salt Lake game, we might talk about this one for a little bit longer. Snow College goes into Taylorsville at the Salt Lake Gym, and they come out with an 84-70 win. That's a 14-point win. That's also the largest margin that the Badgers have had over Salt Lake. It was a 1-point win. The first time the Badgers played Salt Lake in early January in the first conference game, that was a 1-point win, and then it was, I believe, like a 4-point win in the second game that went into overtime here in Ephraim. And boy, the Badgers really hit shots in this game. It was a phenomenal game to watch, super close in the first half. Badgers were down, and then they were up, and then it was really back and forth. But the second half, just like in the Colorado Northwestern game, was controlled by Coach May's team.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the biggest takeaway from this game is that you did have a smaller starting five. You know, you had guys like Chance and Adams who are more than capable starters, if we're being honest. We've seen them start in games, and they've been
rotating in and out that shooting guard position all season. So they are both quality starting players. The difference is that it was those two on the floor rather than one of Lemke, Bliss, or Feltz in center position, and Coach May slid Isaac Garrett to the 5.
Yep, no doubt. And I think it really just worked in their favor in terms of Salt Lake Community College being thrown off by the sort of starting lineup. And I also have to give another takeaway because, again, we had five players in this game with double-digit scoring. You had Chance with 17, Finlinson with 15, Lemke with 15, Ford with 12, and Adams with 12. And it's really just another consistency thing that we've seen all year with them. But my biggest takeaway with this one was the fact that they held Xavier Edmonds, who dropped over 35 points, 37 to be specific on them in the last game at the Horn Activity Center. They held them to 18 points in this game. So Edmonds was completely shut down, and it was both Chance and Lemke who were primarily the defenders against him. I'm not really surprised by the Lemke guarding him, but I'm kind of surprised by Trujillo guarding him, honestly.
Yeah, and Chance started the game as the primary defender on Edmonds. It stood out on the broadcast when Gary and I were on the radio that Chance was the lead defender on Edmonds early and throughout a lot of the first half, because most of Kyle Lemke's minutes came in the second half, and it wasn't just a one-on-one matchup for Edmonds with Chance. It was a lot of double teams. Coach May threw double teams at Xavier Edmonds the entire game, and it wasn't the double team specifically that threw Xavier Edmonds off in this one, because the Badgers double teamed him in the second game that they played here at the Horn Activity Center when he had 37. Obviously, when you have 37 against double teams, quite often they don't do anything. But the double teams in this one were brought at different times and by different players in different directions. And Coach May varied when he would bring and who he would bring and how aggressive they would be on the double teams, and I think that's what threw Xavier Edmonds off.
Yeah, no doubt. The creativity of Coach May really stood out in this one, and I think I was really impressed with the timing of the help defense whenever he got into the post right there. The help defense was tremendous. It was there on time with Lemke, and it was just really huge for them going into this game, and we knew it was going to be key going into this game. We mentioned it last week. You got to shut them down, and they did exactly that, really utilizing the talents and sort of the perfect matchup, I want to say, between Lemke and Edmonds. They're both very similar styles of play, so I think Coach May saw that, got creative with it by putting Chance on them, and it really worked in their favor.
It did, and it wasn't just the defense against Xavier Edmonds in this game that was impressive. In the second half, just like in the Colorado Northwestern game, Badgers outscored Salt Lake 43-29 after it being tied at 41 all at halftime. So that's great team defense against everybody else as well in this game.
Yep, no doubt, because we did mention Ethan Copeland, who is a more than capable shooting guard, I think, and they shut him down as well because obviously Salt Lake Community College are not a one-man team out there. They're not just going to focus solely on Edmonds. They are great at getting other players active as well. So for the rest of the team around on the court to shut down the rest of that offense, it was really just fun to watch.
And a big part of it was the bench points for Salt Lake. Salt Lake starters went for 18 points for Edmonds. Bendinger had 17 points, Copeland had 13 points, and Sam Solovich had 10 points. And then Cohen Collier hit 2 threes in the first 5 minutes of the game for 6 points. Is what he finished with. But Salt Lake's bench scored a total of 6 points. Smaley had 4, Jackson III had 1, and Cade Rice also had one. And the Badgers had a combined 27 bench points. So that's huge.
Yeah, no doubt.
Both defensively and offensively for Coach Mank's team.
Yeah, no doubt, because you want to lean on your bench players a little bit, especially when you have your superstars getting tired and a little bit of fatigue. So when Edmonds and Copeland come out, you want to rely on those bench players to really step up and sort of hit those shots that they've been struggling with all games, really show the different threats that they have.
Yep.
But the Badgers, they absolutely executed well coming off of their own bench as well. As you mentioned, 27 bench points. Obviously, Coleman Ford, he was huge with that, with 12 of those bench points.
And then Lemke had the other 15.
Yep.
So it was just between those two players.
Yep, so no doubt execution was just all around tremendous, both defensively and offensively, whether you're the starter or coming off the bench for the Badgers. And for them to, again, shut down those bench players for Salt Lake the way they did, it was just an all-around great performance.
And you mentioned that the Badgers are top 6 in shooting percentages in the country. In this game alone, the Badgers shot 52% from the field, 46% from 3, and 6 for 6 from the free throw line. The Badgers made 14 threes out of 30 in this ball game. It was extremely impressive to watch the Badgers shoot the ball at Salt Lake.
Yeah, and a huge improvement from the last game as well.
Yeah.
Because in the second half, it was the second half, right?
I believe so.
That they shot 19% from the three-point line. So to see that sort of jump in improvement.
In the second half against Salt Lake at home, the Badgers shot 19% from the field, not just from the three-point line.
Not just from the three?
From the field.
Gotcha.
But in the second half of the Salt Lake game this past Saturday, the Badgers shot 55% from the field.
And yeah, when you talk about an improvement right like that, I think it really just threw off the Salt Lake Bruins a lot, in terms of them. Like they sort of expected them to take chances on shots that they weren't really accustomed to. So I think for the Badgers to really throw them off and just get so many points as they did and shut them down on defense, it really obviously played in their favor because they came out of this one with the win. So all around, just a tremendous shooting performance on the part of the Badgers.
It really was. And this week's King of the Court is not something that we're going to be giving to somebody who scored the highest points, kind of like we normally do. But Kyle Lemke came off the bench in the Salt Lake game, as we mentioned, at 15 points. And then we talked about his defense along with Chance's defense on Xavier Edmonds. But Kyle Lemke's performance specifically in that Salt Lake game is why he's this week's King of the Court.
Yeah, exactly. And you know me, I'm a center guy. Like I really love the physical style and the paint and everything. And Lemke is exactly that. I mean, you talked about those 15 points, so he's very productive on the offensive end and everything. Yep. But he also had 1 steal and 1 block. And as you mentioned, he was the primary defender against Edmonds when he was out there. And to shut down a guy like Edmonds, it's not easy because he's a big, strong guy as well. So you really got to be disciplined.
On his own, but when he did have to be isolated against Edmonds, he held his own.
Exactly, yeah. And because as I mentioned, Edmonds, he's a big, strong guy. So for Kyle Lemke to go out and the way he did and get those one-on-one opportunities and really take advantage and do it cleanly as well.
Yep.
Because I think he only had 2 fouls throughout the whole game, somewhere around that. And so for him to shut down Edmonds the way he did one-on-one, it was just very fun to watch.
Yeah, Kyle Lemke had 3 personal fouls in that game against Salt Lake. Also, you said efficient and effective on offense. 7 of 8 from the field is phenomenal. I believe Lemke missed his first shot and then made the next 7 in that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on other news, we talked about Chance's defense on Edmonds. Chance also was the leading scorer against Colorado Northwestern and Salt Lake. He's this week's Scenic West Athletic Player of the Week. He's the 6th different Badger to win that award this season, the other 5 being Coleman Ford, Isaac Finlinson, Isaac Garrett, Mark Brown Jr., and McCaden Adams. So that really, really shows the depth of this Badger team and why Coach May knows that on any given night, any of his players could lead the team offensively.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the talent as well and the work that these players have put in off the court and, well, during practice, I just be more specific.
Yeah.
The work that they've put in has just been tremendous. They've been a very disciplined team as well, and I think that really plays into the fact that they're really going to be specific with their shot selection, but not afraid to take the shots that they're really not accustomed to taking.
Yeah, and Chance is not afraid to take the big shots.
Oh, no.
He definitely displayed that this week, hit a lot of big, timely threes to give the Badgers leads, both early in the Colorado Northwestern game and around the 10-minute mark of the Salt Lake game. His three-point shooting was huge to keep the Badgers in those games and then to pull out those wins.
Yep, no doubt.
Now, on the women's side, they are on the verge of doing something historic after getting their 5th and 6th straight wins this week. The Lady Badgers went to Colorado Northwestern and won. They go to Salt Lake and win by 4 after getting blown out there early in the season. And the Lady Badgers started off 1-5 in conference play. They are now 7-5 in conference play after winning 6 straight, 18-9 overall, 8-4 on the road, averaging 68 points per game. And this 6-game winning streak has been phenomenal. They haven't allowed anybody to score over 69 points. They only give up 54 points per game in this stretch through those 6 games. They've only given up 54 points per game while scoring 55.1 points per game and shooting 48% from the field, 32% from 3, and a rough 61% from the free throw line. But their offense has been enough alongside their tremendous defense that we've seen all year. The offense is starting to put it together, and that's really been a major part of this 6-game winning streak. They're now in 3rd place in the Scenic West Athletic Conference standings.
Yeah, and one thing I really want to preach about this 6-game winning streak that they're on is that 5 of those 6 games have been on the road, making it even more impressive. Yeah. And again, as you mentioned, the consistency on defense has really been present all throughout the season. And as you mentioned, the offense is really starting to pick up the pieces and build around that defense a little bit, really give them momentum into these sort of games. And this week, I'm really excited to see what they can do defensively and offensively with this sort of momentum at home this week.
Yeah, and you talk about that momentum. I mean, the win at CSI was the first win of that streak.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they took that momentum to beating North Idaho in overtime, and then to winning at Utah State Eastern and getting their first win against the Eagles, and then carrying it over to Colorado Northwestern and Salt Lake. Now being at 3rd in the standings with North Idaho and CSI being ahead of them, both at 9-4, and then Salt Lake and Utah State Eastern both being at 7-6 behind the Badgers. The Badgers right now are in a position to go from starting 1-5 in conference to hosting the SWAC tournament if they win the next 3 games, because the tournament is hosted by the #1 team, obviously.
Yep.
If the Badgers win against CSI, they will have the tiebreaker because they lost their first game at home against the Golden Eagles and then won at CSI. Same thing with North Idaho, lost at home and then won at North Idaho. So those series are 1-1, and Salt Lake is the same way. They lost at Salt Lake and then won at Salt Lake again because of a scheduling difference with the Salt Lake team. The Badgers won't play Salt Lake till the last game of the regular season. That will be a home game. So the Badgers get to end this season 3 games at home with a chance to have the tiebreaker with against all 3 of those teams and possibly finish first in the Scenic West Athletic Conference standings to finish a historic comeback.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, to talk about that 1-5 start and to see them just improve steadily throughout the season, obviously a lot of credit goes to the players, but obviously we got to give credit to Coach Zoo as well.
A lot.
A lot of that credit has to go on her part and her staff as well. So this team is really the one that has yet to say die, and it's really worked in their favor with that 6-game winning streak. And as you mentioned, this is a team, they determine their own destiny.
Yeah,
I think.
The future is 100% in their hands.
Yep, no doubt.
It doesn't matter who else wins and who else loses this week. If the Badgers win their first 3 games, they will finish first.
Yeah, no doubt. And I feel very confident in them defending the home court as well, because as we mentioned just barely, they really control their future at this point.
Yeah.
And I really have confidence in these players executing what they have to get these wins.
Yeah. Badgers are 6-4 at home. A lot of those early conference losses came at home. So it is a little bit worrisome, but with the momentum that the Badgers have had, they shoot better at home. They have a winning record at home. I think Coach Zoo's team will be able to pull out 3 straight wins at home. And if they are, knock on wood, they will host the Scenic West Athletic Conference tournament. And that would be something phenomenal and historic to see from Coach Zoo's team.
Yep, no
but
doubt.
let's get to the games that they actually had played at Colorado Northwestern and at Salt Lake. First, Thursday at CNCC, a 69-46 win over the Spartans. Had 2 players in double-figure scoring. It was a close first half, and the second half was not very close at all, and the Badgers just took control.
Yeah, basically. And that's really been the story of the past 2 weeks, actually. The fact that the Badgers have been able to really control the games in the second half, keep it close in the first half and take momentum into the second half, and being able to execute adjustments made in the locker room. Mm-hmm. It's been really fun to watch, and this game was basically the pinnacle example of that. As you mentioned, the 2 double-digit scores, which we said was going to be key this last week for them. It was Bay with 26 and 7 rebounds, and Josino hit 12 points on that one. And it was just really impressive because they also held the Spartan bench in check just like the men's team did. They only held the Spartans to 2 bench points, which was really, really impressive to me.
It really is. That type of defensive effort is very impressive. And the Lady Badgers, I mean, part of Ayanna Bay scoring 26 points was the fact that the team had 52 points in the paint.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously, scoring 26 points alone is impressive, and a majority of those points did come in the paint. And I really think Ayanna Bay needs to be credited for the fact that she doesn't really panic in the post too much when she gets inevitably double-teamed or something like that.
Yeah.
She's always looking for the open teammate.
Yeah, 10 of 12 from the field for Ayanna Bay, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 0 of 1 from 3, but also 7 rebounds and 2 assists with a block and a steal for her in that game. Fast forward to Saturday, the Lady Badgers went in to the Lifetime Activity Center at the Taylorsville campus of Salt Lake, and they win a close one, 64-60. And part of the reason the Lady Badgers started off with a 1-5 record is they had a couple of close games and then couldn't finish it in the fourth quarter. End of the third quarter, it's a close game against Salt Lake. And I knew that with the way that they've been playing, I thought that Coach Zoo's team had a great chance of being able to close out that fourth quarter. But because of past experiences watching those fourth quarters, I was a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
They're able to pull it out. They win with defense and making free throws in the fourth quarter to come out with a 64-60 win against a good Salt Lake team.
Yeah, no doubt. And the main takeaways of this one, first and foremost, the fact that they lost the first game 84-52.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're able to go back there and win this game 64-60. Like, obviously that's a close game, but a win is a win.
It is.
And it's just been so impressive. Like, it really shows the evolution of this team throughout the season. The fact that they are a team that's truly, I want to say the team that's truly embodied the fact that it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no doubt. And they played exceptional defense, as I mentioned before. And with the CNCC game, they played exceptional defense. And in this one, they did it again. That also had 2 double-digit scores again. Josino did it again. And Hawakarangi had 12 points. Josino had 14 points. Forgot to mention that. But they also shot very well from the three-point, but they didn't have that many attempts. So they were very efficient, though, from those threes, which is another takeaway.
Yeah, and when you shoot only 12 attempts from 3, but you make 7 of them, that's a lot of points on low attempts. And the low attempts allows the Lady Badgers to get a lot more shots and possessions at the rim. And as we've seen, that they're really good at scoring in the paint. So those low attempts and high efficiency is huge in terms of high efficient offense for the Lady Badgers.
Yeah, no doubt. And those three-pointers, obviously, they set the tone when you hit them early. And Brooke Pennington did exactly that. She hit her two three-pointers throughout the game were in the beginning of the game, which led to a 6-0 lead.
The first and second possession of the game, the Badgers, they get the ball off the tip. Brooke Pennington hits a 3. They get a stop. They come down. Brooke Pennington hits another 3. And then a few possessions later, the shot clock was running down, and Pennington missed that 3. But it was a phenomenal start for the Lady Badgers from 3 in that one. Josino started off the fourth quarter with 2 huge threes to keep the Badgers in. And I feel like some of the fourth quarter struggles from the Lady Badgers is not being able to hit the open shots when they get them. In this game, they did that, especially from 3.
Yeah, no doubt. And as you mentioned, Josino, like, she just had a phenomenal game all around, but obviously a lot of that credit has to go to her effectiveness from the three-point line, I think, very well, because she is a really great shooter. We saw it last year with her. She is a really effective shooter when she gets in the zone, and really this game was the pinnacle of that.
Yep. Her performance at Salt Lake and at Colorado Northwestern is why she's this week's Player of the Week, the Queen of the Court. 12.6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block against CNCC. 14 points, 2 rebounds, 4 of 5 from 3. So she had 4 of the team's 7 total three-point makes at Salt Lake. 5 of 7 from the field. The 2 huge fourth quarter threes have really helped seal the deal against Salt Lake. She played phenomenal this week.
Yeah, no doubt. The game against CNCC, she didn't really have the best percentages, but like, obviously you finished with double-digit point. That's very impressive. But I think it's the things that she did outside of those points obviously stepping up big with those 6 rebounds like we mentioned, distributing the ball with those 2 assists, and being effective on defense, not just the 1 block, but also being really good on defense overall in that game really helped her. And of course in Salt Lake, the percentages were just massively improved. 4 for 5 from 3 alone is very impressive to me.
Yeah.
Yep, and those 2 huge fourth quarter threes, like you mentioned, were just really huge, and this is a really easy choice. I think this is the first time she's been the queen of the court on the show.
I believe it is.
Yeah, and so obviously this is a really well-deserved congratulations, double-digit points in both those games. Just I really think she's a player to keep it up in this upcoming week.
I think it will. She shoots better at home, so if she can continue that shooting hot streak into the games at CSI this Thursday, February 27th at 5 p.m. Again, the tiebreaker with the Golden Eagles is on the line for the Lady Badgers. The first 2 games, as I mentioned, CSI won the first one 67-51. The Badgers tied the game at the end of the third quarter in that one and then lost it in the fourth. And then they won at CSI 69-60 and won that game in the fourth quarter. But the keys for this game are going to be what got them their wins at CSI and at Salt Lake.
Yeah, no doubt. And no doubt the keys for this one going into me is, for me going into this one, is third and fourth quarter execution. We've seen a tremendous execution in the second half from them in the last few games. And at home, they had tied it, like you mentioned. And then the second key to this game is rebound the ball and don't give up so many second chance points. And then you have to, again, limit the turnovers. They had 13 in one of the games last week, so I'm expecting them to really build off that one and really not turn the ball over again against CSI and force over 20 turnovers again in this one, because they forced over 20 in the last 2 games as well.
Yep, and then being able to get points off of those turnovers will be huge as well. And then for the men against CSI Thursday at 7 p.m. following the women, Badgers won the first 2, obviously 110-82 and then 93-89. The first game here, the last time CSI played at the Horn Activity Center, it was all Badgers from start to finish. The 3-point shooting was excellent from Coach May's team. The defense probably could have been better, but it didn't matter because of how well the offense played. So going into this one, I'm sure there will be some things that Coach May will want to clean up. They've had double-digit turnovers the last 2 games, or not against Colorado Northwestern, but 2 of the last 3 games, Coach May's team has had double-digit turnovers, and he likes keeping it under 10. So I know that they're going to look to do that here at home against CSI.
Yeah, and that really kind of takes me into my first key to this game is limit those turnovers to single digits. I think it's really something that the Badgers are pretty confident in doing because they haven't struggled with turnovers too much this year, so I'm not really worried about this one in limiting turnovers. But one thing that I am kind of concerned about is watching out for Isaac Hawkins, who is a guy coming off of an injury, and he's been playing really well, especially coming off of an injury. So I think they really got to look out for him and continue to shoot the ball well and continue to play good defense. That's the story for this team. I think they're really going to be confident going into this one and executing both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, we're talking about this game during prep, and we're like, well, what do they need to do to win? Well, they've been doing everything that they have needed to do to win up to this point, so it's just continue what you've been doing was the main thought for Coach May's team because they haven't lost a conference game yet. So continue what you're doing and don't relax at all on the floor.
Yep, nope, not at all.
Now for the women on Saturday, this will be March 1st. I can't believe we're already heading into March. The season's close to over. March Madness is on its way. Time flies here in 2025. The Lady Badgers are taking on North Idaho at 1 p.m. on March 1st, this coming Saturday. Badgers, again, I mentioned this earlier, lost at home 72-57. That one was close at halftime and close for most of the third quarter. Badgers lost that one at the end, and then they won the second one at North Idaho in overtime. Could have closed it out in the fourth quarter had they made a couple more free throws. Couldn't do it, but were able to do it in overtime, 176-68. It should be a phenomenal game for this one. The last time North Idaho played here, Galindo had 40 freaking points. And that's going to be top of the list scouting report for Coach Lee's team in this one.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And outside of Galindo, you also have to look out for Rookstool as well. She was a double-digit scorer as well in that game as well. And as you mentioned, Galindo, I think they're really going to have to neutralize her, just not outside of the perimeter, because when she does play the point guard, she's typically driving in, but she's also a three-point threat, so she's a multiple threat all over the floor, and she can also distribute the ball very well that I've seen in the past. So she's obviously going to be the main thing, but also look out for Rookstool because she might be the recipient, of a lot of those passes from Galindo. And other two keys I want in this game from the Badgers is limit their own turnovers because they average 19.7 currently, and force turnovers as well. Really stay strong on defense. And I think the last key to this one is have multiple double-digit scorers once again. I do expect Bay to hit that double-digit mark, but I would really like to see a point guard like Elliott or Pennington hit a double-digit score.
You mentioned Malia Elliott hitting double-digit scoring. She hasn't done it for the past few games. And for the whole season, she's been averaging 10 to 11 points a game. She's now to 9 points a game after struggling offensively the last 2 weeks. And Bay has moved up to over 10 points a game for the Lady Badgers. And if you're listening and you hear the keys for this game and be like, well, that sounds like the exact same for the last game, and probably the same as what we said last week. And it's because when the Lady Badgers do these things, they win. And so if they can do these things every game, they will win. And that's what they've been doing during the 6-game winning streak. And that's why it's kind of repetitive, but it's because those are the biggest keys for Coach Zoo's team specifically. Other teams, different styles of play, things are a little bit different. But for Coach Zoo's team, these are the most important, I would say.
Yep, no doubt.
And now North Idaho, on the men's side, come in still with a top scorer in the country. That's Von Weems. He had a great game here at the Horn Activity Center when the Badgers played him the first time. Also had a good game at home against the Badgers. Unfortunately for him, both of those came with a loss to the Badgers. So he's going to be, again, top of the scouting report for Coach May's team.
Yeah, no doubt. The fact that he's a double-digit scorer, he's been top 5 in the entire nation in scoring in the past. He was number 1 for a while. I'm not sure where he stands right now.
He was number 1 both times we played them at 29.5 a game.
Yeah, and so he's going to be the constant threat in this one, especially if he's out there for a majority of the game. I can't really see him taking too long on the bench, you know what I'm saying, because of how much of a threat he is and how essential he is to North Idaho's operation, both offensively and defensively. But in terms of the Badgers, again, I have to ask them to limit the turnovers to double digits and keep your defensive scheme to slow down Weems, like I mentioned. Obviously, he's going to be a threat. But the third key is easily going to be keep playing the way that they have been playing, tough defense, and be very consistent on offense, really use your hustle to your advantage. I'm very excited to see the point guards in this one, like with the women's team. I think Mark Brown Jr. is going to have an excellent game, and I think Coleman Ford, if he is to be coming off the bench in this one, is going to be huge as well.
Yep, Coleman Ford has had a couple of big games. Salt Lake was big. He had 4 threes in that one. He's been a huge help for Coach May's team off the bench running that point. And, I mean, you said it. Just like we said at the CSI game, keep playing the way that you're playing. Don't relax. If you're Coach May's team, they can't, because that's how number 1 teams get got, as the Badgers are still the number 1 team in the country with the best record in the country.
Yep.
Well, that will do it for us here on Inside Badger Hoops from Ira Bowman, JC, and